Hello, I'm Cosmic, and welcome to new indie RPG Always Sometimes Monsters, developed by Vagabond Dog and published by Devolver Digital. Always Sometimes Monsters is an indie RPG designed around choice and consequence. It's designed so that players can take a great number of diverging paths through the story, and choices will have lasting effects on the story. Though it is an RPG in some form, Always Sometimes Monsters is not about gallantly slaying dragons to save a princess in a mystical land. It is in fact set in a modern day life, and it has no combat. Yep, that's right, no combat. The game is about living through the eyes of your chosen character, living in his or her set of circumstances. Essentially, it's a game about the modern day human experience and all the trials and tribulations that entails. When the game starts, you are at a party for Larry, who appears to work at a book publisher. You first take control of Larry and you can talk to the people in your apartment. Depending on who you have a toast with, this will become your main character. Once you've selected, you can take control of the main character and head onto the patio, whereby depending on who you talk to there, that will determine who your other half is in the game and ultimately your sexuality. After this point, the characters will all toast with Larry after he offers to sign you up to publish your book that is currently a work in progress. After that, the game then skips to 1 year later, and you find yourself in a rundown apartment, broke, single, and owing your landlord $500 in rent, which you must somehow find by the end of the day or risk eviction. It's clear early on that everything has gone horribly wrong for you, so your first task is to not get evicted, so you head out to find some work. As the story progresses, you find out the reasons why you are in the position that you are in now, why your love of your life has left you, and some important meaningful twists along the way. The gameplay in the game is limited. You have the ability to move and interact with objects, and that's about it. There are various minigames in the game that range from playing video games in the arcade to processes involved with the various jobs that you may encounter. Each day includes a morning, afternoon and night cycle. You will have limited time during the day to accomplish tasks. Usually the time will progress after you've done a certain task, so for example, should you go to work at a job in the morning, once you finish it, it will become afternoon. The day and night cycle is important for certain events too. An example of this is if someone is meeting you at night, should you miss that appointment, you won't get a second opportunity, it'll be gone. The last major gameplay element is stamina. Your character has a stamina bar that can be refilled with food and drink. It's important to keep your stamina up, especially if you end up sleeping rough in the streets or you may not survive the night. The game can be very tedious at times too. It can be frustrating and annoying. The limited gameplay and the controls take its toll, as can real life. While it is frustrating and tedious at times, once you're actually involved with the characters and the story, it kind of becomes irrelevant. There's so much to experience in the game that the lack of the gameplay and ultimately the lack of variety doesn't really matter. The game's content itself deals with multiple social, domestic and financial issues. Even right at the beginning of the game, you're tasting desperation. Love issues, money issues, unemployment and more are right smack at the beginning of the game. The experience of the situations you come across in the game will really resonate with you personally. Many people, including myself, have encountered many forms of desperation in life, including financial, love life, etc, etc. It's really a game about choices. It really wants to enforce upon you that there is no right or wrong choice in the game. It's just a matter of evaluating the cost and benefit of each choice, and your circumstances ultimately will affect the evaluation of the choice. If you're desperate, then you might do something that you wouldn't otherwise do, whereas if you have lots to lose and very little to gain, you might not be so risky. An example of this is early on in the game you have a friend who's a rock star, and he is an ex-heroin addict, and you come across a bag of heroin and you have several options available to you. You can give your friend the heroin and give him his fix. You can take the heroin yourself, you can flush it down the toilet and get rid of it, or you can try and sell it and risk jail time because you need the money so desperately. These are the kind of choices that you'll make throughout the game. There are big major choices, there are small inconsequential choices. Even some choices may appear small at the start but then turn out to be quite big later. Something, if you do a nice thing, a kind act for someone in the game, maybe they'll come back later and repay you. if you are horrible to someone in the game, maybe they'll come back and take vengeance on you. It's all about choices and consequences. Even right at the start of the game, depending on your choice of character, race and sexuality, the game that will actually change things in the game for you too. For example, if you choose to be an African American, you will encounter racism at some point. If you choose to be a homosexual, you will encounter sexual prejudice at some point. You will encounter various prejudices throughout the game and deal with really tough social issues that require you to make a choice and interact with people that you necessarily don't like. The game actually does make you feel something, and that can be something nice, that can be outraged, indignant. It doesn't really matter. It's important that the game actually connects with you as a person, makes you think about what you believe in, and in that regard, Always Sometimes Monsters really hits the mark there. The quality of the writing is mostly good in the game. There is a couple of instances where it's not that great, but for the more major parts of the game, it is very well written. For example, one thing that I personally hate, and it's something small, but it's something quite British, but I really don't like rude people. I don't like people who are unnecessarily rude. I don't like people who are rude to other people. I find it really distasteful. And there's an instance in the game where you're with a woman and she's so rude to this hairdresser, and she's essentially just making this hairdresser feel like crap for no reason whatsoever. And I'm just sitting there at my computer screen screaming at this woman, saying, how can you be so rude? It's disgusting. How can you treat another human being like that? And in that way, Always Sometimes Monsters is absolutely fantastic because it does engage you as a person and as a player. It engages you into the life that the character is living and the people you encounter and the situations that arise. And it's something of a success in that regard. I have to say that Vagabond Dog have done a really good job with the content of the game, and it really does make you think and really does make you act on your beliefs, or even not necessarily your beliefs as a person, but if you're playing a character in the game that would have a set way of certain beliefs or is interacted with differently. For example, if you're playing a homosexual and you come across a lot of prejudice, you're going to get on the defensive a lot when you meet new people because you're wary of people being horrible to you for no reason whatsoever. And it's that kind of element of the game that the role-playing part really comes out, because you can really put yourself in the shoes of the characters that you choose, and it becomes not necessarily a joyous experience because there is a lot of negative content in the game that deals with serious issues, but it's about it going through that experiencing something that you wouldn't in your normal life, and you can throughout the game. And in that regard, I have to say that I cannot recommend it enough. Now, of course, there are going to be players who don't like this game whatsoever because of the lack of gameplay. It's more of an experience rather than a game, and in that regard, there are going to be people who really don't like it. But on the other hand, if you are interested in role-playing, if you are interested in social, domestic, financial issues, if you've had depression, if you've been desperate, if you've had any of those kind of issues in your own life, then this game will really resonate with you as a person. And on that regard, as an indie game and as a game with an obvious point to tell and about talking about choices and consequences, it's definitely one that you should pick up. And just for the experience of playing it and just for the content that's there and the issues that are dealt with throughout the game, it's definitely worth a try in my opinion. If you're a person who isn't really into that kind of deep thing and you prefer a more superficial game with a lot more gameplay, with combat, etc., then definitely stay away from it. But if you enjoy an experience and you enjoy a story and you enjoy the ability to make choices and have those choices have actual real consequences that affect the rest of the game, then by all means definitely pick up Always Sometimes Monsters, because you will definitely get hours and hours of tedious enjoyment out of it. And that's Always Sometimes Monsters. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.